What's up, y'all? And thanks for tuning into the Crash Bang Boom podcast. Today's guest is someone I've wanted to speak to since I started this podcast, in Damon Che, who is widely known for his distinctive and often wild style of drumming with Don Caballero. But Damon and I get into everything from his setup to influences to tours, recording, various phases of the band, van wrecks, as well as his connection with drummer Ash Pearson of Revocation and how Ash assisted in getting him up to speed for online lessons and more. And if you'd like to reach out to Damon for said lessons and more, email him at doncaballeroband@gmail.com. And also look out for his new band entitled Yesness. Today's episode is sponsored by oneuploops.com. Drummer Carson Gann and his team spent an incredible amount of time recording over 450,000 shaker, tambourine, and hi-hat loops at every possible tempo in multiple fields with incredible mics and outboard gear for you to pick and choose. It's organized for you to find exactly what you need with just a few clicks, and everything feels and sounds incredible. You can sign up for free to check it out and gain full access to all 450,000 loops starting at just $6 a month. No download limits, whatever you want, whenever you want. New loops, one-shots, and drum breaks are being added weekly. And I can say from experience, it's a great addition to the arsenal of any drummer and or producer looking to add and or diversify their clicks and or percussion tracks. Check it out at oneuploops.com. Crash Bang Boom podcast can be found where all podcasts are found. And if you like what you hear, please check out the previous 290 plus episodes. At double high fives, you can give me a like, a subscription, and or a positive review. The support is appreciated. So without further ado, the one, the only, Damon Che. Crash Bang Boom!
Crowds go mad with joy.
Damon Che, what's up, man? How are you doing?
How do you do? How do you do?
Pretty good, man. I'm glad to catch up with you, man. You're definitely a guy that I've wanted to speak to for some time, and someone who's drumming and worked with Don Caballero marks specific phases in my life. So this will be both interesting for hopefully both of us and the listeners, and also nostalgic for myself.
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess to start with, one of the connections here is a mutual friend in Ash Pearson, who I know started the Don Caballero Instagram. What is your connection with Ash?
Ash is a magnificent cat
Yeah, he's awesome.
that he knows from the master vocabulary of grandiose percussion.
Yeah,
I'll just put it that way, I guess.
yeah.
And he approached me, and he just came off as such an excellent chum by any measuring stick I had, that we just instantly hit it off. And so
Yeah.
and then he saw my situation for what it was, is I'm like this old washed up drum cat that might have a few beats left in me, and like, how can we clean my garage up, try to get the hot rod running again, that kind
Right.
of thing. So he was really helpful in getting me set up with a system where I can do remote session work from home, lessons from home, online, had decent gear, and also a project to preserve the Don Cab master tapes too.
Right.
I was kind of like, oh, well, yeah, we wouldn't want them to not be preserved ever, to just be lost or whatever.
Sure.
I didn't quite understand why it was so important to him. He seemed more passionate about it than me. That was it.
Gotcha.
And then he kind of hyped me to the idea of play-through videos, which are popular. And I didn't know that. And
Sure.
he, encouraged me to try to, to whip up a set of playthrough videos from Don Cab songs. And we used the original master tapes to suck my original performance out and play the current geriatric version, plug it in, and get to see that exploded view of how it all works and everything. And
Yeah.
and so it was cool, and so I never would have had that idea. So, and that's why preserving the master tapes was at the top of his list, I guess.
Ah, good strong set of foresight on the guy.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
That's really cool, and it's funny too because in knowing him, I know him through the heavier bands that he's played with. More recently, Revocation, and in talking to him, he was telling me he was a big fan of you and everything else. And this was right around the time when he was even starting the whole Don Cab Instagram up. So I'm glad that it's led to all this stuff, and now here we are talking. It's kind of a fortuitous connection between us. It's really cool, man.
Yes, indeed, I think so too.
Well, going back, rewinding a good bit, going back to your early life, I don't know much about you from that perspective. Did you grow up in or near Pittsburgh? Did you have siblings? Did you come from a musical household?
Yes and yes. I grew up in Pittsburgh, but I spent my summer vacations out where I live now, which is about 65 miles outside of town.
Okay.
Rural Pennsylvania. And at this point in the game, I don't think I could give up the tranquility, the serenity, and the placid aspect of rural living.
Mm-hmm.
And then as to whether I came from a musical family, I certainly did. My father was a musician all of his life.
What did he play?
He was a blues guitarist of the finger picking style.
Nice.
He frowned upon flat picks heavily.
Yep. And was there music being played in the house outside of just whatever he was playing, like through stereos and stuff? I guess what was going on?
like all the good music in the house was being listened to by me.
Gotcha, of course. Did you have siblings as well?
Yeah, I have 2 younger brothers.
Nice. Did either of them pick up an instrument of any kind?
Yeah. My one brother makes guitars.
Nice.
Plays guitar, but now he makes guitar. Probably makes more guitars than he plays.
Okay.
My other brother that lives out in California plays bass and bands with his friends.
Gotcha. As far as school, because again, I just know you primarily through your playing, and it's such a distinctive and interesting way of playing. I would always think like, what is this person like, and or like how do, my mind always kind of goes to like school. Like, did you enjoy school? Was it a strange place for you, like it was for me, where it was kind of always a bit of a struggle?
I had such a fascinating range of experience in my 4 years of high school that I wouldn't trade it for anything, and it had the highs and the lows, and
Mm-hmm.
but I always enjoyed it, even when it was a shit sandwich. Like
Right.
I showed up like a very strange, maybe even smelly, like teenager with a shaved head that looked like people called me Ozzy because I had a shaved head, because Ozzy Osbourne had a shaved head that year.
Okay.
Ozzy somehow.
Right.
But that was like for 5 seconds, and then on to 10th grade, and then by the time I was done, I was like dating like the prom queen, and,
Wow.
and then by the time I was a senior again, it was all the way back to zero. Like everyone in my class hated me, didn't have any friends, and they thought I was some idiot in some punk rock band, which I was.
Yeah.
Like I said, I enjoyed the bads just as much as the goods. So
right. And mentioning that sort of distinctive sound again, and just general approach to the drums that you have, when you think back about maybe those formative years, it sounds like you were playing drums at the time in which you were in high school as well, right?
Yeah, I was in the school band.
Gotcha.
And they start you out on bass drum, which is lame.
Yep.
But that time I was done with it, I was playing triple toms and
nice.
Playing halftime at like pro NFL games. It's like one of the bigger things our school district got to do one year.
Yeah.
I just throw that out there, like whenever sports fans want to like tussle with my track history or whatever. And it's like
I was in school band and marching band and all that stuff in Louisiana, and doing Mardi Gras parades and stuff like that. I never really played the football games because I just had a really nice musical teacher who was fine with me not doing that, so long as I would just come to the class, play snare drum, show up to some of the parades, and then I got in this talented music program. I was like the first drummer to do it, which is like an hour north of New Orleans, and it was a strange experience. And then at the same time, I was starting to play in bands, and once I started playing in bands, certainly my interest waned pretty significantly, I would say, from sort of the academic side of playing, just even in high school. I'd continue to study through college with just drummers. I didn't go to school for it, but definitely once it came time to play in a band and have that camaraderie and that creative aspect, I was like, clearly that's what I want to focus on,
Yeah.
Is that your case, I imagine?
Well, my love affair with music might have been so personal that I didn't really have words for it.
Mm-hmm.
Getting back to the whole range of experience. I mean, there are different opinions on this, but I liked when underground music was like bizarre, and esoteric might be the wrong word, but like, before the internet, hard to figure out. I've mentioned this before, but like my copy of Joy Division Closer that I bought in like 83.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I got it home, it was a Portuguese pressing, so it didn't even have the inner sleeve. It was just like a white paper sleeve, a label, no track information, and you flip it over in the back, and it's completely blank. And you've got that, cover, that famous cover, and then Joy Division and Closer. That's all you knew about it. And then you dropped the needle and you knew a whole lot more about it.
Yeah.
But not in words, though.
Sure.
You took a musical experience, and to this day I love that.
I mean, in the early '90s, I guess, right around, if the first record for Respect was in '93, for me, I would have been 15, I believe, in '91. And it was a pretty crazy time, certainly for music, having, Jesus Lizard to the Melvins, to My Bloody Valentine, to Faith No More, to Mr. Bungle, to, Ministry, for fuck's sake. And then all the hip hop that was happening, and Metallica put out the Black Album. And then there was even more underground, really interesting stuff certainly happening with like your band. At the time, were you interested in sort of what was going on with maybe grunge or anything around that time? Or were you more interested in sort of diving into the past and sort of deep diving into maybe more bizarre or lesser known bands?
I was active in music by that time period.
Yeah.
And so most of my inspiration came from my formative influences.
Mm-hmm.
So quite honestly, grunge music didn't inspire me.
Yeah.
It was more like your neighbor. Oh, hello, grunge. Hi, what are you doing this? Oh, you're making some burgers and you're barbecuing for the weekend. Oh, cool. Nice to talk to you. Okay.
Yeah.
But I got my own thing going on over here,
Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't very inspired by the grunge movement because I was busy with my own horse and my own race by then,
For sure.
But I have respect for it. I mean, I was a fan of Dave Grohl before he was in Nirvana.
Right. Scream and the early punk rock era of stuff of him.
My fandom like predates grunge, when it comes to most things out there. My true inspirational fandom passion, the stuff that made me want to play music was well preceded the grunge time period.
Oh yeah, for sure. You mentioned Dave Grohl in there. Were there any drummers that you felt maybe a kinship with? Because the first time I heard you, a buddy of mine said, dude, check out Don Caballero 2 and get the Ruins record, the Japanese duo, Burning Stone, I think is the name of it. So at this super bizarre, like late 90s, I was listening to both Don Caballero 2 with your playing, being like, what? This is crazy. And then listening to the Japanese duo. And it's such a specific time in my life.
Yeah.
I would say that I was inspired by your sound. I didn't necessarily understand how the hell you were doing it,
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I mean, there were many drummers that inspired me maybe at a halfway point, not from my musical roots, but like, for example, like the first time I ever saw Rey Whasham was in Scratch Acid.
Yeah.
And that it was pretty mind-blowing drummer to behold. But then it couldn't have been a whole year later. He was playing in Albini's band that, has that name that's, we don't have to say it. It doesn't matter.
We'll just call it Two Nuns and a Pack Mule.
But I was a huge fan of that band, and I'm not trading that in for anything.
Me too. I hear you.
And that was the first time I realized there was this concept of like paddling up a waterfall. Just in the sense that I was standing in the front row and getting sawdust in my eyes, I realized there were higher echelons to what was possible with percussion.
Right.
I was falling short of. In my own estimation of things with my own measuring stick or whatever. And so, Rey Whasham was super inspirational for me to realize that you can put some lava and punch through the ceiling, with what you're doing here. We haven't reached the ceiling yet,
Yeah.
And a lot of the other touch and go drummers really inspired me as well. I mean, I thought Jim Kimball and Laughing Hyenas was mind blowing. I thought Mac McNeely and Jesus Lizard was mind blowing.
Absolutely.
And I think most people with a head on their shoulders that appreciate drumming at all did too. So
when you think, I guess, about when you first started out and literally the sort of the setup that you play, it's super distinctive setup. I'm looking at it right now. I would really, I think, struggle to play it. I've always been fascinated, and I feel like it probably informed your sound just navigating it. But have you always sort of played the snare kind of low and at that angle?
No, I started playing the snare like it's positioned on a stand. And over time, like a rim shot on every hit became my technique, my pocket feel.
Yep.
And the way my body grew, I just needed to keep tilting it, or I'd get this massive click and tennis elbow kind of thing would happen. And so I just keep tilting it and tilting it and tilting it. And hopefully we'll never have to tilt it any further. I think we finally reached the end of the tiltosphere. But that's why it was never a look at me, I can play a tilted drum. That was never the intent.
Sure.
Line it up to keep connecting with my stroke.
Right. Having tilted it at any point to get away from the tennis elbow, did you experience any wrist issues from that sort of angle, or did it not really affect you that way?
Universe willing to date, no.
Excellent.
No wrist trouble. No wrist trouble.
Damn, man. And with the sort of tipless sticks, I call them, kind of bat sticks, have you always played those with Don Cab?
Yes, with Don Cab, yes.
What was the impetus for playing those sticks? Did you just like the big thudding nature of them? Was it an acoustic?
That I remember seeing when London May played in Sam Hain. I remember looking at his stick bag on his floor tom and go, "Wow!" I mean, he had like actual like logs. You know, they were really big.
Yeah.
And so that made me want to just see like what's it like to play with sticks that big. And then over time, I realized that the type of specific marching stick, DC-10, where they were just a little bit shorter than regular sticks, and that was more comfortable for me to be able to hit everything just the way I wanted to hit it. Sometimes the longer sticks would get knocked out of my hands easier. It was just less likely to have a clumsy accident with the shorter stick too. And so that was part of it too.
Interesting. When you think about, I guess I was kind of mentioning the Don Cab 2 record. How frequent were y'all touring at that time? Was it pretty damn frequent?
Before that, it was like we toured for like 2 years on For Respect almost.
Wow, really?
Yeah, like a lot of 93 and 94, we did a lot of playing. And then when Don Cab 2 came out, we did nothing.
Oh.
And that was probably a mistake. But I mean, Slint Spiderland did the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
It all happened how it happened. I mean, you can't like unring the bell of the fact that you put out a great record and didn't tour on it. I mean, that's all water under the bridge now. But
right.
And then What Burns.
Another great one.
We did start to tour again.
Okay.
Full U.S. tours, full European tours, etc.
How were y'all received in Europe?
I never had a bad time.
Yeah.
I always came back with good revenues and lots of fun.
Were there any particular cities in the States that you felt were really receptive to what y'all were doing?
That was kind of like potluck. I mean, sometimes you would play Cleveland, and one time we played Cleveland with Pavement, and people were like throwing watermelons on the stage.
Really? Watermelons?
Yeah, Gary, the original Pavement drummer, smashed a watermelon on stage once when we were playing.
Oh my God, that's funny.
But then other times, we would play and have really lousy shows.
Sure.
And not just Cleveland. I'm not just pick. Like even Houston would be that way. Like
sure.
Sometimes you have a great, incredible show in Houston, and you'd come back and you couldn't believe how lame it was. And then if you waited long enough, you'd have another incredible show. Underground rock, indie rock, whatever you want to call it. I mean. It was very fickle, and the audiences were very temporary. They were very like 4 years of college kind of fans, And then, I'm out of here. We're not. You don't get fans for life when you play to college kids. You get
true.
You get fans for life when you play to like, I don't know, like school kids. Those are the people that never forget you, and like will still be there when you're like too geriatric to even play. Really,
right. Around the time for Respect, I mean, you just mentioned having put What Burns Never Returns out and then like playing with Pavement. Who are some of the bands in 93 that you recall maybe playing with?
We played a lot of good shows with Trans Am.
Nice.
I don't know if we got to play with Golden as much, but I know Ian's other band, Storm and Stress, played a lot of shows with Golden, and I would come to a lot of those even though I wasn't playing.
Right.
No one ever knew what to do with us anyhow.
Sure.
So we didn't always get on the bill that you would think would be the bill you would be ideal.
Right. I could absolutely see that. I love it that you mentioned Golden, by the way. I just happened to have seen them at the Mermaid in New Orleans. Buddy of mine was like, some of the guys from like Trans Am are in this band if you want to go check them out. And from outside, I heard this drummer, and I'm just going, who the fuck is playing drums right now?
Yeah.
And I go in there, and I witnessed John Theodore before he was ever in the Mars Volta, and I just made a note. I was like, whoever this guy is, I went up to him afterwards and was just like, dude, that was really amazing, man. Incredible playing.
Yeah.
And now, from Mars Volta all the way to the Queens of the Stone Age, it's been amazing to see him, the trajectory of that guy. And man, I mean, well deserved. That guy is such a bad motherfucker.
Absolutely. Everything you said about John Theodore.
Absolutely, man. I wanted to ask you one thing about What Burns Never Returns. I started to notice in sort of listening to the chronology of the band that I felt like I was hearing more of your drum sound. And then especially I feel like on American Dawn, I was, really like, wow. Was that something that you stressed that you wanted to get, or was it a matter of just somebody saying, this is part of y'all's sound, I want to capture it in? Because engineers can be really finicky about, resonant drums and more tonal drums and this and that and the other. But was that something you stressed, or did it just happen?
I would just attribute that as all just recognizable growth. I mean, when I started out, I probably had more amateurish approaches to, like I used pinstripe heads on like the first singles we ever played.
Okay.
And then somewhere I realized that coated ambassador heads sounded much more jazzy and vibrant, psychedelic, open.
Totally.
And so, and then I might have done that for a while until I realized somebody said your bass drum sounds like a door slamming shut. And I'm like, well, wait, I want more than that.
Yeah.
And so I realized, oh, well, geez, I've got like 5 pillows in this bass drum. So let's maybe make it just one towel instead of 5 pillows. And that probably resulted in a more boomy, open kick drum sound.
Right. What do you recall about working on American Dawn? How was that experience recording that?
As personnel of the band, we were kind of at the end of our rope in a lot of categories. But I mean, I thought it was time to make another record with Steve, and I wanted to make a record in his new studio. The first record we made with him was in his home studio, his house studio,
right,
from back in the day. And then Electrical Audio was his grand master plan studio, and so I wanted to make a record there.
Yeah,
and that was American Dawn.
Nice.
I chose that Adobe brick drum room in his A room was amazing. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I love the drum sound, especially. And I think much like Albini's records with the Jesus Lizard, as opposed to maybe like Shot, which I think was like Joe Barresi produced that one. That one got cleaned up so much. I think whatever was captured, especially with your drum sound, and I imagine a good bit of room mics to really capture how it was reverberating in that room, sounds to my ears like it was captured on American Dawn. So I'm just saying, and also obviously Steve Albini is an incredible drum producer.
Sure. I was never able to get into that A room ever again. So I guess
wow.
Good that I made it count where I did.
Yeah. How was it returning to work with Steve?
Once again, recognizable growth. I mean, he had grown since, the days of his home house studio.
Absolutely. I know very little about the van wreck that to my understanding, y'all were en route to what was thinking that it might be the final show of that lineup around American Dawn. What happened and where was that? Was it near Detroit?
Yeah. It was, we were on our way to Detroit, but the accident happened in Toledo.
Okay.
Or either just before it or just after the city of Toledo. I mean, we were driving too fast in the snow. It was, the long and short of it. And you get into that high speed congestion, and then you end up in the pack of people that are too impatient, and then something's just bound to go wrong when you're one of those packs of high speed congested motorists.
Yeah. Oh boy.
We're lucky to have survived it. I mean, I still have a bracket on my bass drum that's like, just like kind of pounded in, just like in such a way that you can tell that like something really, really hit this piece of metal to make the dent in it. Like you couldn't just throw my bass drum down a flight of stairs and get one of the brackets to get a dent in it like this. This was from like hitting the side of the van, like hitting another motor vehicle, kind of like
Right.
It didn't break the drum, but it left a really nasty dent in the bracket.
Damn. How were you after that? Did you have any injuries?
No.
Wow.
We had to get a rental vehicle the next day and then go to the salvage yard and try to get our articles of possession that survived the vehicle.
Damn, man.
Destruction.
It's crazy. All right. The band Creta Borgia, I happened to see them in New Orleans. They played at Checkpoint Charlie's. I had a buddy outside who's he plays in it's Paul Webb. He designs amps, and he has a band called Spickle that I think was certainly inspired by Don Caballero. And he said, man, you got to check out these Creta Borgia guys. And I went in and saw them. I was like, this band is killer. And then to hear those guys with you, I thought that was a really awesome pairing for what the next phase of Don Cab was.
Yeah, I played bass with them at one point.
Did you?
They were really good friends with Stinking Lazavita.
Absolutely.
And it seems like we would always run into them in New Orleans for some reason.
Oh, for sure.
Creta Borgia, I don't think Creta Borgia toured a whole lot.
Okay.
And then the time they did that I played bass with them, we did go all the way down to Florida, but I can't remember if
did New Orleans or not?
Yeah, I can't remember if we played New Orleans or not.
That's crazy if you were on bass. That is so funny if that would have been the case.
I really like their music a lot.
I hear you. I mean, when you look back sort of at that reformed phase, I thought that y'all did a hell of a job. Again, your style in that band is so specific. So I think even with stuff shifting around, to me, I was like, this is definitely Don Caballero regardless.
You're speaking about the Relapse era of Don Cab.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy that stuff. When I did all those playthrough videos with Ash, I mean, we tried to be fair and pick as many of every part of the history.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely didn't blow off any era.
Nice.
If anything, I probably blew off the 4 Respect songs. Although I think, did we do one? I can't remember.
I got to go back and watch all those now. That's super cool. Did you record that at your house?
Yeah. If you weigh that against all the shoebox hole in the wall venues I've played in my life, I mean, it's like there are so many people saw the band that probably never even would have any idea what I look like or what, I look like playing my drum kit.
Gotcha.
We were kind of making up for that in a way too. Like for anybody that's a fan now, you can actually see what I'm doing.
Absolutely. I guess post the Relapse era or those last couple of studio records that you put out, did you find yourself taking a break from drumming? And if so, what did you find yourself doing, I suppose?
Probably just finding my bearings to realize that after a 25-year long ride with alcoholism, I was going to have to make some plans to clean that up.
Uh-huh.
In that time period, I sort of did that, eventually.
Yeah, I hear you.
It started with rehab probably 2 or 3 years after the last time Don Cab played live. And then with a few relapses here and there, I think by the winter of 2015, it was safe to say that I had committed to sobriety and I'm still there.
Congrats, man.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, out of curiosity, I can't even imagine some of the hellishly hot venues that y'all were playing. Were you able to like have a drink or so and then like get through a set of Don Cab stuff just sweating your balls off, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, yeah. I mean, you probably do sweat a lot more when you're detoxing a fifth of vodka.
Yeah, you might.
I used to go see Peter Brotzman, Casper Brotzman's father, that was in Last Exit with Sonny Sharrock and those musicians. And he would play a university where there was no bar or anything, but he would have a bottle of vodka on his rider and he would just pound that thing down and just come out red-faced and play for 45 minutes to an hour.
Damn.
And as a young person seeing that, I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah,
but
it is.
Like over the passage of time, I ended up being just as crazy myself. I was like pounding down a fifth of vodka, hitting the stage, playing a great show, and then probably still like then hitting a half a bottle of whiskey after that. It was ludicrous.
Wow.
It was way off the hook.
Damn, dude. How tall are you?
6'4" ish.
Yeah.
6'3".
Wow.
I'll be 6'3" someday if I'm not already 6'3". I still might be taller than 6'3".
Yeah, nature does have a way of compacting us over time.
Right. Yeah. Right. I'm just trying to keep it honest.
Yeah, I hear you, man. With lessons, how do people contact you, and any information you'd want to give on any of that stuff?
doncaballeroband@gmail.com.
Okay.
And we can do the lessons on Zoom. I'd rather do them on Skype for the audio quality seems to work out. And then,
Okay.
but if it makes or breaks whether you would want to have a lesson with me and you have a disdain for Skype to that extent, we can do Zoom.
Gotcha. Okay, man.
And here's the other thing. Lessons go about an hour and a half.
Okay.
But I can't remember ever giving a lesson that didn't go over 2 hours.
Okay.
They all usually go over 2 hours.
Yeah.
If not, so you definitely get your money's worth as far as my time goes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One last question. When I think about just all the music that Don Cap put out, and again, just your central role to the overall sound of it all, in listening to modern music that has gotten, since y'all were recording, especially in the earlier years, so overly quantized, pitch shifted, and gridded, does it sound strange to you? Do you like some of the modern music that you hear? Certain artists? I don't know.
Yes, I do. I mean, I have like punk rock roots,
Yeah.
but I also have roots before punk rock.
Mm-hmm.
And, I liked a lot of the early 80s new wave music. I liked a lot of the late 70s or early 80s heavy metal music.
Uh-huh.
And then even things where they started to blend together, like, by the early 80s, Rush was they were kind of half new wave and half heavy metal, really, if you want to be perfectly honest about it.
Right.
And so, I mean, it was probably one of the things that was so confusing for people that I could just never go the distance with when they realized I was just not one of them, is they probably just realized at some point, oh, that son of a bitch actually likes Journey. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, he probably really doesn't like the Ramones as much as we do. That fucking traitor.
Right.
So, but like when it comes to newer music, I don't need to shy away from anything. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think the Kishibashi album is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
On Joyful Noise Records. The full length's not out until August, but like there's a few singles out, and with the album that I've heard that's still not out is amazing.
Okay.
Other things on new record label I've been working with recently, Marnie Stern. I think Marnie Stern's great.
Okay.
And then I learned that she always endorsed Don Cab as something she really liked.
Interesting.
In her formative, music years.
Right.
So yeah, there's plenty of new stuff. And the whole music business is just so strange. Like I heard this one statistic rather, that like all of the music being streamed, 99% of it anyhow, is all from the last century. That there's only 1% of music being streamed right now is from the aughts and the 20s.
Mm.
Maybe that'll change down the road, but right now that's where it's at. Like most people that listen to music do it via stream. They don't. I'm into all my formats. I still like popping an 8-track in if I'm cleaning something up in the garage or in the cellar. So I love every audio format there ever was, but like,
yeah,
and 8-tracks sound like ass. It's not the point. I mean, I know the difference between audiophile quality and tin can on a string. I know from all of it, but like it's just still fun to pop an 8-track in. I don't care what anyone thinks.
I hear you. How many stereos do you have around the house? I've got, excluding digital 2 computer workstations, but I've got one record player on a great stereo. I've got a cassette and another receiver upstairs with speakers, 2 different speaker systems, and then I've got another receiver down here just for aux connecting. But I've got vinyl, cassettes, and obviously digital. So it's kind of like a crazy person just dropped multiple sound systems around. But it's nice to go around the house and hear potentially the same music on different systems from different times. It's fucking cool.
I agree. Absolutely. I have different rigs in 4 different rooms. Some rooms more than 1 rig.
Yeah.
Some rooms I've got a tube rig and a solid state rig.
Yeah.
And then other rooms I have a vintage solid state rig. And then you go down in the cellar and I've got the crazy the 8-track rig, and then the crazy Latino dance party ginormous boombox radio rig.
Yeah.
I've got rigs all over the house. So yeah.
Collector, right on. Well, Damon, it was great talking to you, man. I appreciate the time. Good to see you're doing good and you're back at it. I love it that people are reconnecting with you and Don Caballero and that Ash was a part of all of that. It's a cool moment of just full circle awesomeness as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, thanks. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Indeed.
All right, everybody, that's a wrap for this one. Thanks to Damon for catching up, and glad to hear he's back out there doing his thing. We'll catch y'all on the next one, and I hope y'all enjoyed this one. Crash, bang, boom.